Welcome to Watch and Code Office Hours. This is session number 87. The idea behind office hours is really simple. So if you're going through any material on watchandcode.com and you're having a problem with it, then you can ask me directly. And so you don't have to worry about getting stuck with anything. I have just a couple announcements before we start and get into questions. So you'll want to have access to this document. If you don't, um, so if you're watching on the YouTube live stream, if you look in the description, you'll get a link to this document. So the first link here is just a link to our Facebook group. So that's what you'll want to join if you want to get information about upcoming sessions in case there are schedule changes and then announcements as they come up. I pretty much never send emails ever. I know that's unexpected in today's drip email marketing campaigns spam world. So if you want to know stuff, you just kind of have to join the Facebook group and get the information there. The second thing is if you have a question, you should call in. That's really the only way to ask. I sometimes will look at the questions in the live chat below the live stream, but I miss those. So if you do have a question, then you should call in. And the link to call in is in this document. Really quick note about new stuff. I made a very slight revision to one of the videos in the reading series. So this is for premium members. The reason I'm not being specific is because you don't need to go back and look at it if you haven't. If you've already gone through the reading series, you don't need to go back and look at this. It's not that interesting. It's a very subtle change where Chrome is behaving a little bit differently than it used to. And so because Chrome is working differently, it appears the application appears to be different than the application I have in the video. So if you're running the code in Chrome today and you're watching the video and it's a little bit different, I kind of just address that. So it's a small change, and so you don't need to go back and watch it if you've done the reading series already. And then if you haven't, then you won't even notice. And so, but that was kind of the effort to, I mean, keeping all the content up to date is always an ongoing effort, and on top of that, improving it. And so I'm always have to do that kind of stuff. And then the next thing I'm working on is the newest video in the underscore series. So I don't have a timetable on that, but that is the next kind of what's next up if you're looking for new stuff. So that's it for me. So we're just going to open questions. And again, if you're on the YouTube live stream, then you should call in. And the link is in the document right here. So let's start with Andrew. Are you ready with your questions?
Yes. Like I said, they're more general questions, but they do pertain to, for example, job-related pursuits, but also JavaScript and such. So it's about blogging. You may have covered it before, but I noticed, and in main pages, people seem to, well, they outright say that this is something that's kind of needed to push ahead in the industry. So I was wondering what your take on that was.
Wait, what's needed to push ahead in the industry? I don't understand the premise.
The use of blogs, having your own blog kind of thing.
Having on blog. Okay, so the caveat here is Andrew's built up a lot of goodwill from consistently showing up to this, and so
Oh,
I'll answer your question, even though it's a little bit. It's not directly related to the content. Um, I think if people talk to me enough, they'll be able to guess my answers. Um, the most important thing is to be really good at programming, and everything else is tertiary and sub optional. So, for example, even having a portfolio. If you're really good at programming, you don't need a portfolio. If you like, there are a lot of things that are nice but not necessary. Blogging is definitely one of those things. Definitely unnecessary. Can be helpful, but it's not. That shouldn't. You should look at it as kind of an extracurricular thing. right? Like the most important thing is you to be good at programming, you to ace the interview. You have to show substantive work that you've done, ideally at a company, or that's hard if it's your first job. So if it's not, so if you're going for your first job, you should have open source contributions, and ideally not stuff that you just threw up on GitHub, but contributing to existing projects, right? So that's probably the most valuable thing you can do, because that is work experience. Blogging is, the range of blog posts varies from better off not published to amazing, right? And so if you publish amazing stuff, then obviously that can be a big asset, but most people, um, you know, so there are exceptions there. So if you do amazing stuff, that's great too. But again, the most important thing is to show that you can do the work. And blogging, I think, is a way you can show the work, but it's not the most direct way, I think. Now, using that in concert with something you've done, like you did some work on this project and you used your blog to describe it, maybe then you're talking about something that's more direct, right? And a more effective way to use than just I wrote blog posts, right? I think that can be okay, but there again a huge range of quality, and so yeah, it's like anything else. But the most important thing, do things that make it um, clear that you can do real work. So if you show that in a blog post, that's great too, right? But if you just have that as the objective, and everything else will, and then you'll kind of know the answer.
Okay.
Any other questions, Andrew?
No, that was the last general question I actually have that I've
Okay.
been building up. So no more of those really. For good, you'll be happy to know.
Do you have
Anyways,
specific questions?
no, because actually your course, like, okay, so I moved on to the premium, but I told you I went back, so I'm on almost on version 11, going through reviewing and making sure I understand concepts, and then this week I'll be moving on, and then I have 2 weeks to study hard because I have vacation.
Mhm.
So that's where I want to get the most done. So all the questions are kind of being answered by the content itself. Some of
Mhm.
it's a little difficult to get around my head around, for sure. Like sorry, I'm just looking at right here, but like I'm on the clicking delete. Should update to-do list and the DOM. So some of these things they're going to take a little while for me to actually get in my head. But
Mhm.
anyways, so far I've found out that by reviewing, it comes naturally, or with a later video, it clicks.
Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I think your general question is probably a good one, because I think probably a lot of people have that question, which is, and it doesn't have to be about blogging, but it's generally what are other things I can do that can help. Right? Blogging is one thing, and again, I'm not trying to say you shouldn't do those things, but they're probably they can be helpful. But remember, in the order of prioritization, it's probably not the most important thing. And so it's fine. It can be positive, especially when it's done in combination with something that's really valuable. But blogging alone is not going to probably is not going to get you what you want. So you still have to focus on the kind of main task. But yeah, it can be a lot of good things, and I think a lot of students get, their secondary benefits they get, which is they get better at explaining things, and they reflect more on their experience, and those are all good things as well. But again, they're not the most direct, not the most direct path to success, but there definitely are positive things. So
Okay,
I'm
I
not,
thought you would say that.
yeah.
And actually, I asked because I hate the idea of doing it.
Mhm.
I thought it might be something.
If you hate it, I don't think you should do it, honestly.
Okay, yeah, I don't.
I don't have a blog. A lot of people don't have blogs. I think it's something you should do if you like it. If it sounds, but I wouldn't do it just because someone said that you should. That's my honest. Um, yeah. So like Hernandez said, I'd prefer to spend the time to be a better programmer. Yeah, and you could you know like contribute to a project or build something on your own, and there's a lot of other things that are very productive and arguably a better use of time. But in a sea of a lot of different things that are positive and not harmful, it's hard to choose the right thing to do. So try to think about what the most direct, most effective, most substantive experience would be, especially if you have limited time, and just do that and do the hell out of it. Don't half-ass that and then half-ass everything. But just do. Most students would be served well or best by trying to do one thing really well. And I think that is true of not just students, but probably everybody, including me. So that's what I try to do. That's why I don't have a blog. I don't have a podcast. I don't have most things, or I don't have a lot of things that other people have, because I'm not trying to do everything.
Speaking of podcasts, I listened to that one that you did on JavaScript Jabber.
Mhm.
It was really good. Awesome.
Thanks.
Anyways, that's all I have.
Yep. Yeah. So for example, a related thing for me is a lot of people have podcasts today, and I thought about doing one at one point because it seems like it would be fun and it seems like it wouldn't be harmful, right? I think there are a lot of things like that that seem like fun. They seem like they wouldn't be harmful, but at the end of the day, I decided not to do it because it's not the most important thing I could do, right?
Awesome.
So sorry if you wanted me to do a podcast.
No.
Okay, Andrew, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And okay, so you're reviewing Practical JavaScript. Is that where you're at?
Yes. I definitely wanted to make sure that was in my head. I don't like being unprepared, because I moved on to the next section, the premium, and I noticed that well, it was actually going really well, but I feel that if you don't understand, like, these are the fundamentals, and that's what you're talking about, understand that first, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to get it code line for line by myself. Like, the first half I can, but the second half, I think it's gonna take a lot of time before I'm there.
Yep. Wait, did you watch the new videos I released like a week-ish ago? What do you think about those?
No, they were really good. I messed up the second one. The first one was no problem. Second one I messed up. Then I clued in, and then I got the third one.
Nice.
With the challenges.
Yep. That was intentional. I hoped that would happen because I wanted you to wake up and be like, pay attention. Because I think if it's too easy, everyone's like, oh, obviously, this is so dumb. And so I wanted you to feel slightly not good. Success. Okay, sweet, awesome. Thanks, Andrew. It's good to see you again. Let's go to Joe. Joe, you there?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I've been going through the premium, the part 2, the reading section, and I don't know. I watched the videos and I took a look at the code, and I guess like initially when I started with it, I kind of had that feeling like I wasn't like overwhelmed, but I saw that, this is a lot like what was in Practical JavaScript, but a lot of the code, I was looking at it and I just didn't have a functional understanding of how it was working. But when I went through the videos, especially I think it was the second video in part 2, where you're basically, because you start to show us how to get, it was the part where you go through the different methods and you go into the DOM and you show us the source and you show us the event listeners in the console. And you basically show us how you can look at everything in the console through the sources, the elements, so on and so forth. And it kind of that really put a lot of how to find out what everything is together for me. And what I've been doing using those techniques with the debugger and looking at the source and looking at the elements is I've been pretty much making really exhaustive comments on the code. And I think it's actually really been helping me kind of get my head around what exactly is going on. Because I mean, I I guess just from looking at the comments that I do write, and then I look at the length of the comments compared to the length of the code, start to see, I see like how much information is actually going into how many like commands or protocols are into the small lines of code. So in terms of questions, I kind of just want to get an idea if my process looks like how my process looks to you. Like, does it look exhaustive? Does it look like it's thorough? Does it look like it makes sense?
Do you want to share your screen so we can all look at it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't looked at it. I know you posted it in Slack, and I think you were having a discussion with, I don't remember who
Tanner.
it was.
Yeah, it's Tanner.
Who's right here?
Yeah, that was me.
Hey, Tanner.
Hey.
So yeah, open it up and I'll take a look.
Okay. So
It's dark. This is hard to read.
okay, yeah, I can. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
And then can you Command plus and make it a little bigger?
Yeah.
Okay, so you basically wrote a bunch of comments above the code.
Yeah, right above it.
Yeah. I would actually encourage you to write the comments like with the code. So
Okay, yeah.
like if you're commenting line 126, then write it right above. And if you're commenting line 127, then write the comment right above.
Okay.
Because otherwise you had to like, it's not so obvious how these match up. Okay, but aside from that, I can't read the full line. The lines are cut off. So with programming, you want to keep your line the column length pretty short, because otherwise you can't read the code. So yeah, I can't read. Everything's cut off.
Sorry. Yeah, it does get cut off at the edge. I don't know. Yeah, like on my screen, I make it smaller and then you can read everything. But I guess if you're looking at it through a screen sharing, it looks a lot smaller.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll deal with this, but just Joe, what I'd recommend you do is write the comments along with the code, so it's like each line as follows, and then keep it like really short. So each line shouldn't be more like longer than the code. So for example, you see the last line where don't move your mouse or anything, because each time that has to refocus. But the last line of comments in line 124, where it says get active to use method in our code, that's the right length for a line.
Okay.
And then you can read it. Okay, so I'll go through a few of them because I don't want to do the whole thing, and just to get a sense of what's happening. So I'm looking at line 112. I don't know what it will be translated in relationship to the second return later on in this translation. I don't understand what that means.
Okay, well, for me, it's like the return this dot to dos dot filter, and like there's two returns in the whole get active to dos function.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, before I did this, it was kind of like fuzzy seeing what the different returns did. But when I kind of like broke it down into what this dot to dos is doing, what dot filter is doing, and so on and so forth, I kind of got the sense, like it kind of made it apparent to me that the first return or the second return returns, it's iterated and it returns all the different objects that have a false value in the to-dos array, and that's returned to this dot to-dos filter.
So that's not quite true.
Okay.
So what would be more accurate is, and I think maybe you're getting too granular, but you should think about what this to-dos dot filter returns, right? So that this to-dos dot filter is a method call, which returns a value. It happens to return an array.
Right.
It has, so the second return is not really relevant. The second return is relevant in what filter does, but when you're looking at the outer return in 127, it just returns whatever filter returns. Right? So you're creating creating a relationship that's not really,
Okay.
it's not as, I mean, like you do have to compute and run the callback function that's passed in the filter. Like you do have to run it on each element in this dot to dos, but that doesn't really, that's more of filter's concern. It's not really, you know, it's not, I wouldn't see that as directly related to return in 127.
Well, I know the second return is related to how the filter function works. I guess that's the structure of the callback function that you use to use filter.
Well, describe it. So let me see. So how do you describe it?
Okay, so when you use the dot filter method, right? It takes a callback function, which takes a parameter, and the parameter basically gives you access to the different elements of your array. And in this case, the to-dos array has objects in it. So that parameter to do, that variable, when you go into the callback function of the dot filter method, what it's doing is it's basically returning to do dot I guess, yeah, that's another thing, like with this code, because it has a bang operator. And when we first get introduced to the bang operator, like now I'm like segmenting from what I was explaining to like something else, which is kind of, I don't know, I guess it's something that happens, but okay. So the bang operator, basically, it looks like it's returning the dot completed value, which is a Boolean value. And because the bang operator is in front of the to do dot completed, I guess when you're returning a Boolean value with the filter function, the default Boolean that it's looking for is a true value. Is that correct?
Not really, no.
Okay.
So so what filter does is it calls the callback function on every single element in an array.
Right.
If the callback function returns true, then that element is included in the new array that filter returns. If the callback function does not return true on that element, then that element's not included. So remember, I did a demo of it, I think, where I had like, it actually just returned, I just made it return true or false. I made the callback function return true or false. So say you had the elements in your array are 0 and 1.
Right.
Okay. And then your callback function just takes the element and says, is it 1? If it is, return true. If it's not, return false. So if you run the filter method on the array with 1 and 0,
okay,
then it'll just give you back 1 because it returns true on one and false on the other one. So it just excludes that.
Okay.
So it's the callback function's return value is used to figure out if you should include the element in the new array or exclude it.
Right. I get that.
The return value is not actually used anywhere besides to figure out if it should be, the element should be kept or discarded.
Right. That's okay. All right. All right. So an active to do, this function is returning active to do's, and an active to do essentially has a completed value of false.
Yeah.
It's all right. So so when I run this function, then the dot to do's dot filter is going to, well, the filter method is basically takes a callback function, which
Here,
allows you.
let's be more concrete. Open up a about blank tab.
Okay.
And open up the console. Can you close the Or can you expand it? It's really small. Just pull it up. Okay, so create an array. This array has elements -1, positive, has 5, -1, 5, 23, 0, and -10. Can you format it correctly? So just hit up and format things the way they should be formatted. Not quite.
Quite.
Look at the first element. Okay, that's better. Okay, hit enter. So now run filter on this test array, and I want you to save the return value to a new variable. So create this new variable. Hold on, declare a new variable.
Okay.
And let's call this, just call it filtered array. And I want you to take test array and filter out all the elements that are less than 0. So you should have 523 left.
Okay.
523 and 0 left. Everything less than 0 should be excluded. No. Why did you set filtered array to an empty array?
Oh, I'm not sure. I thought you said to create a new variable that.
Yeah, create a new variable that's equal to the return value of calling filter on test array.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So it would be test array.
And I only want, so at the end of this, I want filtered array to only have positive numbers or numbers that are 0 or greater. So filter out all the negative numbers.
All right.
Why did you capitalize that? Why do you assume everything's positive?
It's greater than 0.
But this is going to be run on every single element. So that would be misleading, wouldn't it? This function is going to be run on -1 as well, and -10. And why is it called results?
Because I think it's a result of the filter.
No, it's not. You're calling a function on each element in the array.
Right.
Right? And so each argument passed in will be -1, 5, 23, 0, -10. What would be a good way to describe those? They're not all positive. They're not the result of anything. They're not all negative.
Like a set.
It's not a set. You're going to call it on individual elements.
Okay. A good way to describe it.
How did you, let's start from a default that's sane. What did we call, if you were doing this, calling for each on this array, what would you call the argument or the parameter?
I'll just call it number.
Sure, that sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay, so So I'm just I'm returning all values that are greater than 0.
Yep. At the end, I want filtered array to have 5, 23, and 0. I just want to remove negative numbers.
Oh, and 0. Okay. All right.
So 5, 23, 0 should be the result. So what callback function will give you that?
Okay.
You could think of it as remove negative numbers, or you could think of it as include positive zero, include numbers that are 0 or greater. You can think about it either way, whatever feels better.
Um,
So open up the documentation for filter.
The documentation.
Yep.
What do you mean the documentation?
So just Google in a new tab.
Okay.
Array prototype filter. Has arrow functions, which you don't know yet. So scroll down. Maybe they're better. Well, just stick with the documentation, the parameters and return value, and look at that.
Okay. Okay, the current element being processed in the array. It's going to go through. Okay, yeah. I think I can. All right. So number return. Number is less than or equal to 0. Is that?
Just to see if it works.
Yeah. Okay, no, it doesn't. Yeah, I'm just well.
Well, you have a syntax error, so look at how a well-formed filter call looks like, and then replicate that syntax.
Okay. Yeah.
In the process, you've forgotten how to declare a function.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the well-formed filter function and copy and paste it so you can look at it side by side.
Okay.
No, copy the whole thing. No, copy the whole thing.
Yeah, I just have.
You still didn't copy the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Well, you're do get active to dos because this one is malformed too. Okay. Now copy and paste it so you have it side by side. So Joe, I'll let you work on this, and then I'll go on to the next student. But
Okay.
the feedback here is that, when you asked feedback for your comments, the comments were, if I was squinting really hard, I could maybe say that they were okay. But a lot of the details were not right, and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
so it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was that useful to go through the comments. And so what my thinking is can you use the function, right? And so one thing you want to ask yourself, because I think when you're programming, one question you have to ask yourself is, do I understand it? And you have to be honest with yourself, because most people have a tendency to either be very, very pessimistic, like they don't feel like they understand anything, and that's not helpful. And then other people are very delusional and think they understand things that they don't. They're both quite common, and one person may one day be on one extreme and the other day be on another extreme. And so, don't feel bad if that's happening to you. I think it's quite normal. Over time, the gap between what you think you know and what you actually know will start to become almost zero. But that won't happen on day 1 or day 100. It will happen on maybe day 1000. So, until you get there, you need to have different ways to stress test what you actually understand. Writing comments is one step. The second thing you can do is actually to use it and see if you can use it, right? And so I think, Joe, that what I'd encourage you to do is you can write the comments down as a first step, but actually then try to use it and see if you can actually get it to work. If you can't get it to work, your comments are probably wrong.
Okay.
Right. And then you can recalibrate and then reflect on what happened and think about, what am I missing? What do I need to review? And then go through that process over and over again until you can write a comments, and then you can use it without problems, and then you can move on. Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think this specific example is one case of where you can apply this technique, and I think the technique is more valuable than going through in detail and explaining everything that filter does.
Okay.
Because it says, it just tells you on the documentation site, you see a working example in the app, right? You're looking at a example with get active to dos, and I think there may be one other, I can't remember. But the thing you have to do is write down what are assumptions now, and then test them, and then see if you're right. Right. So every comment you write down, you should be able to actually test it. Not easily, you'll have to think about it. But you can do that, and you want to try to do that, and at the minimum, get it to work. And if you can't get it to work, then start with a working example and deconstruct that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense.
Because then if you start with a working example, at least it's going to run. And then you can observe very carefully and think about, well, what happens if I modify this? Does the result change the way? Well, if I modify X, how will that be different? You should write down what you think is going to happen, and then see if it happens. If it doesn't work the way you expect, then you need to recalibrate all of your assumptions again and look at it again until what you think actually aligns with reality, and just do that over and over again until that happens. Right. Another way to do that, if you, like, for example, say that you have an example and then you modify it and you try to think what's going to happen, then you may not like you might just have code that doesn't work at all. That could happen too. So in that case, you want to look at different examples. You can find different examples on the documentation page, or I don't know, maybe there are different examples in the Sudo MVC application as well. I don't remember, but you basically want to look at all the code really in a really detailed way, where you start from assuming you don't know anything and that everything you think is wrong, and then slowly try to peel back and see what you know, and back all of your, like, everything you know should be proven. It should be provable.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. Well, so I think what I'll let you do is I'll let you struggle with this, and then
Okay.
because I think the struggle is important. The struggle is where you reflect and recalibrate your malformed view of what's happening. Right? That is something you must do. Everyone must do that. There's no way to get around it. So if you, at the beginning, everyone has a really malformed delusional view of what's happening, because there's just no way. You just don't know. It's new, and you don't really know everything that's happening. But your job as a student is to struggle through and figure out all of the things you think are true that aren't. Right? And that is, I feel like a lot of students think that they can get around that stuff. You can't. You have to do that. And if you don't do that, for example, students that don't do that tend to just watch, they do tutorials, they watch videos, and then all the code I type is perfect and it works. And then they assume that they know how things work too, but they never stress test their understanding. And it's fine as long as you stay in tutorial land. But as soon as you step out, or as soon as I ask you one question, then it's very clear what's happening, right? And so you want to be testing yourself constantly. I think that, Joe, with the videos on how data is stored in variables, I've started to introduce those things. So for example, like Andrew said that, he got the first question, he missed the second one, he got the third one. And I think as an instructor, I wish that I had that for everything. And so, because I think testing yourself and knowing what to test is really difficult. But if I have more of those exercises, then you can think, like, almost imagine like, what would Gordon ask me, and then test yourself. And then along the way, I'll be asking you those things too. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does make sense.
So I think the plan now is that I'm going to let you struggle through this, and then when we're off the air, you can show me what you found.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, that works.
Cool. All right, thanks, Joseph. I'm just going to read the comments real quick, because there are a bunch of comments that were left in the chat.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, there weren't nothing really relevant to this conversation. Yeah, I think if you're watching this, this process applies to everything. So if you're stuck with something that's not filter, you should be quizzing yourself and trying to hold yourself accountable, and be the doubter in your mind that's like, but in a productive way, right? So everything you think you know, you should be able to prove it. You should be able to not just describe what's happening, but see what's happening, and even like little twists on what's happening, they should work the way you think they will. After you do the proper experimentation, then you'll start to know how it works. So you have to observe what's happening, and you usually need more than one example. So if you're making observations based on one example, you probably will see a very limited view of what's happening. And if there's a slight change, you won't know how things work. So you have to think about, how can this thing be different, right? So it could be something as simple as, I want to return, in Joe's example, I asked him to return the numbers that are 0 or greater. we'll just do the reverse, return the numbers that are less than 0. Or, just come up with another example, or try to replicate an example that you've seen elsewhere. Okay. Let's go to Tanner. Hey, Tanner.
Hey. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, or I'll just ask what have you been up to, and what are your thoughts on all this stuff because I know that you had a conversation about the comments with Joe in the Slack channel.
Yeah, we were debating whether that filter was the same as it was in other parts of the code. Like, so there's the filter array prototype method, and then there's filter used elsewhere in the code. And I was saying that I think it's like unrelated to the filter on the on like the router object.
Okay, so that's a good question, and let's answer that question. And when I answer this question, I want to show you how I would answer it, so you can kind of think about how.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it is unrelated. I was just saying that to him, but that's not really.
Yeah, but what would be better is to know for certain.
Yeah.
So, what are the two things in question? Because there is.
So there's like
in a lot of places.
There's this dot filter, which I was saying was unrelated to this dot todos dot filter, which has a function after it.
Yep, that's true. Why would you think that they're the same? I guess this was
I didn't think they were the same. I was saying that they weren't the same, and we were kind of going back and forth.
So Joe, so why would you think that this dot filter is the same as this todos dot filter? Can you walk me through that thought process, Joe?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Tanner was saying that in a discussion, there was some discussion about this dot filter versus this dot todos dot filter, and whether it was the same.
Okay. So give me 1 second. Okay. I guess that's the thing. I was saying that I do need to go over it again, but from what I watched in the video, I remember that the function, okay, I'm looking at new router. Okay, so all right, so it's on the app object and it's in the init method, and I'm not.
What line are you talking about?
I'm talking about the filter that's found in the init function or the init method.
What line?
Line 48.
Line 48 has no filter. What do you mean?
Yeah, I know. But it's a. Well, that's the thing. I don't understand the syntax. I don't know what new is doing in this line, and I guess. Well, I guess router is a variable, so or in some way, is that correct or?
The function. Well, I mean, it is a. I mean, you can think of that the same thing, but variable is not too instructive, right? Because all functions are variables too.
Okay.
Well, if it's named, if it has a name.
Okay, so I'm not clear on what new is doing in this whole area, but my understanding of this section of code, like I guess line 49 to 53, is that I mean,
so Joe, let's be even more direct to answer this question. So the two filters in question are this one, and then this dot todos dot filter, right? Is that what you're wondering about? Okay, so here's how you can answer that question. You can pause the breakpoint at 43, which I've done. So the way you do that is you can even pause it right here if you want.
Right.
So you can go step into init, and well, you don't really need. I mean, you could play to the end right here, but you can just hover over this dot filter, and at this point it's undefined. But what's more instructive is what is this on? Well, this is on the app object, so that's instructive. And you can see that filter is not defined at this moment. But anyway, even if you don't know what filter is right here, because let's say that this function hasn't been called yet. If it's not called yet, then you don't know what the argument is. So at that point, you'd have to be like, okay, well, what if we put the breakpoint in here? Then we can see what filter is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you run this again, and then at this point, you can see that filter, it does have a value because I put the breakpoint there. So then we're saying this dot filter. Remember, this is the app object. So we're adding a filter property on this, and we're setting it equal to all. So whether you know what new is or not, you can still answer this question.
Okay.
So that's the question. That's the answer to how do you figure out the first part. In terms of the second part, I think if you do the first section, you pretty much kind of know what's going to happen in the second one because they are quite different. But you can see, well, this, let's do it right here. So I want to pause right here on this line. So I'm going to play through and refresh. And this is the app object. And then to-dos is the array with first, second,
Right.
third. And then filter is a function. So right away, you know that, well, this is a function. It's on an array. Well, meanwhile, this is a property on a different object. It's not on an array. It's on the app object. And also, it's a string. It's all.
Right.
Right. So that's how you answer that question. So I guess I think the thing that you can extract from this discussion so far is, and it's kind of follows the same theme of how do you test yourself, is whenever you have a statement that's not a that doesn't have certainty. So whenever you have hear yourself saying, I think this is happening, or something along those lines, you should run the experiments that will allow you to make that statement with certainty.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And that is an additional test on your understanding and forces you to understand the code a lot more deeply than you would otherwise. And so that's a really good example because you have these questions in your mind all the time. It doesn't need to be stated. You don't have to have it in a discussion on Slack, but in your mind when you're looking at code, you constantly have those thoughts. Like, I wonder what this does. I think it does that. Whenever you have that kind of thought, you should stamp it out, run the experiment, and have the certainty around it.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I was pretty sure, but I'm also kind of new to this, so I didn't want to speak with too much authority or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying they're not related at all?
No, they're not related at all.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Well, Tanner, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, kind of. Might be a bit boneheaded, but I just spent some more time trying to figure out this since this morning, and I get what's going on better in section 2, where we talked about the what was that method, the event listeners or whatever it was. But then I got to video 4.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I rewatched video 4 from section 2, And near the end, you talk about the handlebars dot register helper
Mhm.
at the beginning, and the this in that
Mhm.
at options dot. It says returning options dot fn with this in brackets.
Mhm.
And I played around with that a bit, and I don't know. I figured out that if you take away the this, then it makes it so that you can't switch filters,
Mhm.
like they become unclickable. And then I opened up the debugger and I saw that it's because options isn't getting past anything.
Mhm. Right.
Uh,
And that's if you removed the what I've highlighted right here. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Okay. That's right. It would pass in nothing.
yeah. So I don't know. It's just I kind of get it, but it's just kind of confusing to think about.
Okay. Let's see. So I think first of all, I think this is another tactic you can use, and uh, I think this office hours is interesting because like all the individual um, circumstances can be generalizable across like anything you've seen mostly. So I think these tactics are really useful. Um, the one you did instinctually, Tanner, is you just removed this, which is
Well,
almost
that's
like,
one of the things
yeah, it's almost like an A/B
Sorry.
test, right?
Mhm.
And so let's observe and see like what the differences are. Well, first of all, you want to at a baseline level think about what this is, and so before removing it, you would probably want to observe what's happening first in the original state.
Yeah, well, you explained in your video what's being passed to it, which is the same thing as like the get footer method. It's
Mhm.
basically information from the HTML, I think, being passed to it, or maybe not.
Honestly, I don't remember. Um,
I had it written
this.
down, but then it's from the footer template method. It's getting passed information from that, I believe.
So let's go back to that. So let's try to match this up. So there's act to do's count, active to do word, completed to do's, filter all. So active to do count, to do word, completed to do's. Okay. Yeah, it's from here. And then
Yeah,
this
so that's
comes.
what's getting passed into it, but I just don't know why it has that like effect where it just makes the filters unselectable.
What do you mean it makes the filters unselectable?
Like if you when you get rid of the this
Mm-hmm.
and then
But
try to run the code.
so right now, oh, you can't click on these. Like you can't click on all active.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So this first, let me think about because I don't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at this code, and I never use handlebars. So, oh, I see. Okay, so this becomes so this is the footer template. Where does this data come from? Active to do count. To do count. Active. So it's on there. And then is it here? Oh, it's okay, it's in the footer. Oh, right. So this is this this highlighted thing,
Mhm.
right? And so if that's not passed in, then let's see what happens. Let's just try it. So basically you want to take this out, right? Just comment it in line so that I don't have to delete it. Safe. All right. Okay, so it's commented out. And then I can still click on stuff.
Oh.
Huh. Did you do exactly what I did?
Well, I just erased or deleted this.
Okay, well, we can do that too. I don't think the result will be different, but let's see. So I'll comment this out and then so you did this. Right.
I think I just got rid of the brackets too, but I don't know if that I don't think that make a difference.
You got rid of this?
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
Yeah. You're right. Because then it's not a function anymore. Okay.
Yeah, well, you're not running the function anymore.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That's probably why. Yeah. Well, yeah. So the way we have it here is you can still click on it. Let's see what happens if you remove the function call. Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened for me.
So, well, let's look at what happened. So the difference here is that it literally passed in like the function definition into it stuck the function in here into here, which
into the HTML.
Yeah. And I think it just broke the link.
Yeah.
Because I don't think this is valid HTML. If you edit the elements, because I added all the stuff that is really shouldn't have been added. But let's say that you deleted that, then that should still work. But that's why you have that behavior. So I just kind of see now you can at least this one you can click. Basically you instead of passing in the return value of the function, you pass in the function. And so that's why you literally saw the function right there.
But you got an error a minute ago when you did it properly by just commenting it out, I think, right?
What do you mean?
When you just commented it out a minute ago?
Commented what out?
This?
Do you mean, so what should I have?
Like a minute ago when you were trying to recreate what happened with me and it didn't work the same because you just commented out this instead of getting rid of the brackets and everything.
Oh, so you mean when I had this?
Yeah.
I don't remember what happened, but that's something you could observe.
Yeah.
And test and just see and then compare and contrast. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, so I would have to do the same thing and go through that exercise. But in terms of like, so for example, you might have some questions around what the difference is, and that's something you have to go through and try to observe, because it looks like this part's not affected. And so that's something that it could be interesting to think about. Like, are there any effects to removing that?
Yeah, I'm just still trying to wrap my head around the whole.
I think
handbar.
first what you want to do is understand what's happening at the base level, and then once you understand that, then you can add on these additional questions, and you should answer those as well. But it's important to figure out what's happening at the base level first, because that will prepare you and give you the requisite knowledge you need to then ask these twists questions, which, like, removing this is very much a next level experimentation kind of question.
Yeah, I was just trying to, I was tinkering with this because I didn't fully understand it. So, but yeah, you're right. I just got to play around with it some more.
The other thing you can do is try handlebars. I think I mentioned that. That site you can play around with. And this is really helpful too. So you can play around with different examples, and this is nice because it just shows you the handlebar stuff without all the other extra things in the application.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Let me revert this. Yeah, and the examples I had, I think what I'd try first is, I honestly can't, I don't even remember what, I think this was specifically for the EQ. There's like an EQ helper. It's specifically for this. And so I think in the videos I ran a bunch of these through the debugger, and kind of, and so the things I point out in the video, like if you make a change, look at those same things and see if any of them changed. I don't know enough to tell you what would happen, so I'd have to run those experiments too to find out. Does that make sense?
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so Tanner, do you have any other questions?
No, that's about it. Thanks.
Okay. And let's talk more about this off the air too. If they're just general things with handlebars that are confusing, we can talk about that. So stick around, because I'll probably end the broadcast soon after Hernando. Hernando, are you there?
Yeah, Gordon.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Cool. Did you have any questions?
No questions as such. I'm on the simple test part of the testing series, the one after the testing series, when you start modifying, extending, and improving existing code. So I'm doing that. And but before that, I went back and done the the new part that you added to the practical JavaScript with the primitives and objects stored inside of variables. So I done that, and I got all of that right. So I was quite pleased with myself.
Nice. That's
I did trip up on that, but I think what helped me there was that, because I've mentioned this before, I used to do like programming microcontrollers and assembly language, and I think it helps you when because you're actually literally dealing with memory addresses and the actual registers on a hardware level. So it kind of, I think that kind of instinctively helped me there.
Right. It is the same. So that's good.
Because you don't have to struggle with the concepts there, because it's like, and yeah, so yeah, I mean, I passed that little test that you done there, and I'm doing now the simple test stuff. The only thing that's tripped me up a bit is because I just started the simple test stuff, I think yesterday, was again, mention it again, the this context. So, but it's just like you said, the space repetition. I've got to go through the cheat sheet again because I've forgotten it already, you know, from JavaScript. So I'm just gonna go through that again.
Yep.
And but no, I mean, I'm not stressing out about anything. I think I'm on an even keel so far.
Great. Yeah, I think just to kind of continue on with the theme of, like, I think this session's been really helpful because I've tried to point out like tactics you can use to cement this stuff and make sure you really understand it. And then with this keyword, what I encourage everyone to do is in every single function you see, like just imagine that I was on your shoulder and I just pointed at a line of code. Would you be able to tell me what, first of all, what this is? And second of all, tell me what case we're looking at.
Yeah, that would be, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another one of those things. You know, I think if I had a description for this session, it's like how to test yourself, is what we've been talking about the entire hour, and that's so important, and it's difficult, and it's something you have to do continuously. Like I still do that, because if I don't do that, I will just not be able to do stuff either. Yeah, so I think it's just really, really helpful. And I think what I've been trying to do more and more, and I did it, I haven't done as much as I'd like, is in the videos try to, you know, the things that I've described in the session, I want to kind of do those in the videos too. So instead of, I think I've had the bad habit in the past of just saying, oh, this is what's happening. Instead, I'd like to show you the process that you can use to uncover what's happening. And so then I will just show you how I figure things out, because that's much more useful than telling you the answer.
I mean, I do try and well, I mean, from the start, I do try and jump ahead of you and try and basically do my own code, and then I see where I've gone wrong when you reveal your when you actually code it, and I'm always wrong. I mean, your code is always your code is always better in subtle ways, you know. But I do also jump into the debugger and I try and break something, or at least try and see what's happening. I go through the console, like, you know, like you often jump into the console and do a really more basic version of the code to show the function.
Yep.
So I do that. I don't just watch the video, because I think you really need to type on the keyboard and run it yourself in the console, just to get the confidence up. And to actually, even if it's an elementary thing, I really do still jump myself into the console and physically type it out myself, and maybe even do a few other tests similar to what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah, but I think your experience from the past is probably really helpful. I think someone that's like totally new, just running those experiments is really hard. And I think the thing that I wish I haven't done that very well is to kind of point out more explicitly, like, you should run these experiments and this is how you can do that. And
I mean, when I used to do the microcontrollers, you literally had to have like it's like an emulator or a debugger type of thing, and you literally had to watch each register to see how the binary values were changing, you know, just to trace what was happening. Because when you got a bug, you literally had to like look at each register and just figure it out. But I mean, it was so long ago. It was like 20, 30 years ago. So
yep. That's cool. Cool. Okay, awesome. Well, Hernando, do you have any other things?
No questions regarding the course as such anyway.
Okay. Well, thanks for dropping by and sharing your experience. I think what I'd like to do is, Joe and Tanner, I'll give you the option and I'll let you choose. We can just stay on the air, and then I want to check in and see, Joe, where you're at with the filter stuff. And then Tanner, I want to make sure you really understand the handlebar stuff, and just go through that until it feels good. Do you want to? Would you prefer to do that off the air or stay on the air?
Doesn't matter to me. But what was the test that Hernando was talking about? Is that on Watching Code?
Yeah, it's in. So I have like these little quizzes that I added to the data types and comparisons interlude inside of Practical JavaScript.
Okay. Yeah, I must have. I know you said something this morning about you added new stuff, but I went back and looked. It still says 100% complete. But
yeah, I'll show you. Show you on my screen real quick. Okay, so can you see my screen, Tanner?
Yeah.
It's right after. It's right here. So these are the new videos
Ah,
right here. So the second half of the data types and comparisons.
cool. Yeah, I'll check those out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and they're really helpful. The reason I added them is because a lot of students in premium were having trouble with stuff, and so um, everyone should go back if you haven't and watch them. Okay, well, I think it's probably more. It's probably easier for you, Joe and Tanner, to just do it off the air, so then you don't feel rushed and stuff. Because I know it
Okay.
can be a little bit anxiety-inducing to be on the air when we're trying to figure stuff out. So I'll try to make it a little bit easier. So we'll just discuss that off the air. So I'll end the broadcast now. And if you want to join in and see the discussion off the air about filter and about handlebars, then you'll have to call into the chat. If not, if you're going to head out, then thank you for joining. I hope it was useful. Again, I think the main theme of today is how can you test your knowledge? How can you make sure that you really understand something, and what are specific things you can do to see if you actually understand something. And I can't emphasize this enough that doing that's very difficult, and so don't be discouraged if you have trouble doing that. But it can be difficult, and it can suck in a lot of ways, because in a lot of ways you're constantly being wrong, and it's kind of a struggle. It really is, but I think that the end makes it worth it, because then I think when you get understanding that you've derived on your own through experimentation and testing things, it's a lot different than what you would have otherwise, and the sense of the mastery is very, very different. And you kind of have to, I don't know, if you haven't had it yet, you just try it, and I think you'll see that difference. And once you do see that difference, you won't want to do it any other way. But it takes time to get comfortable with that process. It's a difficult learned process. No one does this naturally. So if you're kind of in the early stages, and for example, one thing that can happen is you're trying to test yourself, but you don't know what to ask yourself, or you ask a question that you can't answer, right? There are a lot of ways that you can get not make progress. And so if that ever happens, then the resources are here to, I'm here to help you out. But just know that it's not as easy as it sounds. It is a difficult thing. Okay, well, I hope it was helpful. And I don't remember if we have office hours next week. Next week is Christmas Day, right?
Good.
So I think that I canceled it. Let me double check. Yeah, I did. So we will not have office hours. Wait, did I cancel it? I don't want to say the wrong information. Let me check Facebook. If there's an event on Christmas Day on Facebook, then I will be there.
It
So-
allowed you the opportunity to select interested in stuff. I don't know if that means it's canceled or not.
Wait, let me see. Events. Oh, okay. Yes. So I did post on Facebook. So this is why you want to be in the Facebook group, because the next 2 office hours, or the next 2 weeks, we're not going to have office hours. So 87 was today. Monday, I wanted to explicitly say there are no office hours, because otherwise people ask me about it. So no office hours next Monday because it's Christmas Day, and then next Monday is New Year's Day, and so no office hours then either. So in the meantime, if you do have questions, if you're a premium member, so like Joe and Tanner, we still have the daily accountability meetings you can join and ask questions there. So you still have a ton of opportunity, and Andrew too, and Hernando, all of you. So you have a ton of opportunity to ask questions. If you are not in premium yet, then you'll want to take advantage of the Facebook group. So, and that's just for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll be back to normal. So then I guess I'll see you. The next time would be the Monday after New Year's Day, 2018. So just to be clear, that would be January 8th is the next time we'll have office hours. Okay. Okay. Well, I thought that's probably useful to go through because I didn't realize what the schedule was until now. So then I'll hope to see you on the Facebook group, on Slack, in the daily accountability meetings if you're in premium, and then I'll see you at office hours on January 8th the next time. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast now. So if you want to join the discussion afterwards, you'll want to call in right now.